So I'd now like to invite Mark Slack, who is the CMO of CMR, and his presentation. Thank you very much.
Chris, thanks very much. I'd just like to thank the Vaticuti Foundation for having us here. One of the reasons I wanted to sponsor it, can I have the slides please, was because I believe it's an educational event and not just a pure professional. So modern medical management, the use of research data and education, that's what roughly today is about. Just to introduce myself, I am actually a South African. I have Irish and British passports, and I wish we were still in the European Union. And that's an accumulation of my various degrees and colleges that I belong to. The Lancet Commission on Global Surgery in 2030 came up with some stark statistics. There are 234 million operations per annum, 7 million major complications and 1 million deaths. And poor surgical outcomes impede economic development in low and middle income countries along the lines of if we didn't have childhood vaccines, medication for HIV, etc. So, I mean, doctors, we give the COVID virus a fairly good run for its money by the amount of people we kill on an annual basis. The airline industry has 0.4 deaths per billion hours of operation. The motor industry has 50 deaths per billion hours of operation. And surgery has 50 to 100,000 deaths per billion hours of operation. So we desperately need to be doing something to improve surgical outcomes over a variety of ways. This is another stark figure. In the red line on the left is the percentage spent on health by the United States as a percentage of GDP, and they're spending roughly 19% against a declining life expectancy at birth. So all the money spent does not necessarily give you better outcomes. Global health is much more than profit. It's about value-based medicine and about evidence-based medicine. It's about delivering better health care for the planet, better health education, innovative solutions, and harnessing the power of technology to get there. It's putting patients ahead of profit and policing HCPs, healthcare professionals, regulatory bodies, medical societies, and the procurement process. When I started this company, I'd been professor of gynecology at Cambridge University before. And when I started this company, I made it an absolute part of the company that we would always have a high ethical standard and put patients well ahead of anything else. Meaningful data. We need improved research methodology in surgery. I would talk a little bit about the ideal process. We need improved use of real-world data. We need improved teaching methods, and we need better technology. But I see all these younger doctors sitting in the front, and you mustn't always believe the dogma that you read. You've all been on an aeroplane, haven't you? They tell you how to put a life jacket on, and you tie it on the side, and you've got a whistle to blow for help, and a light to attract attention. Now, believe me, when you hit the water from 30,000 foot, your head will be so far from your chest, you'll have difficulty blowing anything. So I looked up what the survival rate at crash at sea is, and it's 1 in 65 million. And it's only 1 in 65 million because this Ethiopian airline, which was hijacked, the pilot managed to bring it down in the shallows. Otherwise, it would have been naught. But I can see the clever young ones are nodding their heads and shaking their heads because they all know about the Hudson, the crash in the Hudson, and that's classified as a crash at sea. And there was 100% survival of the passengers, and not one of them had a life jacket on. So if we gave an anti-smoking or an anti-alcohol talk instead of that, we'd save many more lives. But getting back to the subject, minimal access surgery halves complications compared with open surgery. And yet in the United States, the so-called sophisticated health system in the world, only 70% of appendices are done by minimal access, only a third of colectomies and a third of lung lobectomies. And that's because laparoscopic surgery is inherently quite difficult. And certain skills like suturing remain elusive. And I ran a laparoscopic training course for 25 years in Cambridge and realized I couldn't teach everybody to get to the level that they needed to be to actually be good laparoscopic surgeons, which is why I started thinking about the robot. We built a robot modeled on the human arm. Where it differs from all other robots, it holds the instrument's end on like a human does. It's got an open console as well. You can sit and stand. This is a unique wrist. We won't talk about it now, but it enables far better reach than all other robots. We have articulated 5mm instruments, ICG, in the normal fashion. And you can see Tony in this picture is only 5'7", so you get an idea of the size of this robot. And it uses the same ports, the same port positions, the same procedural steps as you would normally do. We've done over 30,000 procedures. We've covered all specialties from transoral, thoracic, colorectal, upper GI, urology, gynecology, and now pediatric surgery. And we're more than 180 centers now. And we are the second largest soft tissue robot in the world. Our first in-human studies were performed here in India, in Pune, and our biggest center in the world, two biggest centers, one is in Nasik with Rajnagurka and the other one is in Pakistan. But what about modern professional education? Well, you need to educate well. It's been shown that actually of the top 10 health technology hazards in 2015, the 8th one was robotic surgery due to poor or incomplete training. So something needs to be done about it. So what we've done is created a metric-based training pathway. And I was hearing talks on that this morning. So we have e-learning when you're at home. We have a virtual trainer. We have a simulator. And I'll show you more about that in a second. We have supervised training. We have telementoring as well, preceptoring, and then a dry run before we go in. And we'll talk about that. Sorry, just let me go back. The trainer is attached to the robot, there's a little box, and you have to sit at it. And then the female trainees told us they didn't like it because they could only get on it when the robot wasn't working, which is evenings and weekends. And they didn't like sitting in a dark and lonely theater. And so we've actually put that on a headset. And we have both the team training on a headset and your simulation training. And I'll just show you a second or two of this. So she's carrying her simulator on her back. And you can take it out, and it allows you to enter into a virtual theater. So I could be in Cambridge, and you could be here, and somebody else could be in New York, and we could train together as a team. So by the time they come in for training, they're already quite skilled. That reduces the time you need to have them training, and it reduces the complexity, and it speeds it all up. And you can just see them going through. And this is all virtual as it is. And you'll see the other ones come in. There's somebody else working, shows you where to put the arms, etc. So something that's really streamlined. And we heard talks this morning about simulation. So we encourage them to sit and do a bit of simulation for a few minutes before they start their case. We've got metric-based training. We believe that's very important. So it's not just time-based, it's proficiency-based. And you heard some talks about that this morning and the importance of it. This has been accredited by the Royal College of Surgeons of England, and we've just been given an award of excellence as probably one of the best training programs they've ever noted. And I said it's metric-based training. Mannequins is the latest one. We've been working with IMRA and Pindari on synthetic mannequins. We used to, in the beginning, use cadavers or porcine models. I haven't used a cadaver for 2 years. And these are lovely, high sophisticated mannequins that you can do a variety of things with. So the educational change is massive here. So one is simulation. You can train to a level of sophistication without touching a patient. And the next one is the use of mannequins. No need for a cadaver. No need for a cadaver facility. No need for all the mess and so on. No need for scrapping your robot because it went in a cadaver and can't then be used in a human. We can also take the mannequin to the hospitals. So you can actually be trained in your own hospital without having to go away for a few days and so on. The simulators are also really improved. Systems, advanced skills, and procedural simulators will be coming in. And we've actually measured now that the surgeons we train on a mannequin have better outcomes and get to proficiency quicker than the surgeons we train on a cadaver or on a porcine model. And we've measured that statistically and have evidence of it. And those are the cost savings that we get. So by using team training on the VR headset, we reduce it by half. The mannequin drops it another down to 28% of the original cost. and then the team training drops it further still. And the mannequins we've now also introduced for our FDA work. So when we have to do studies for the FDA, they now let us do them on mannequins rather than on cadavers. We asked the surgeons what they think of the training. A net promoter score runs from -100 to +100. 0 is good, 20 is exceptional, and they scored 94% on the net promoter score. So you, the surgical community, like the training. And we also have extended clinical support, so you can have telementoring if you need it at the time. I'm a bit mad about data. This is the world's most valuable resource, so we don't do enough with it. We've introduced a registry which we twin with a company in Norway, and that on the right-hand side is all the operations we've done, which is everything from a tonsillectomy to a pancreatectomy via an esophagectomy. And the surgeon gets the insights back. So you can get it in a printout with your funnel plots, your QSIMs, how many you've done, etc., etc. That's the funnel plot. You can have anything on the one axis being time, complications, conversion, and then your numbers on the other. And you'll get a plot showing where you are compared with all the other surgeons using it. We've published this in some of the better journals in the world because we believe that publication of what one does is the most important thing to achieve. All of this now is put onto an app on your phone, so you can get all your videos there, automatic video upload. Obviously, the minute the camera comes out the body, it switches off so you don't get non-anonymized data, and it provides you with a digital logbook. The team in theatre also gets a similar one so they can look at their statistics as well. Research is a very important thing that we're not putting enough work in. Not everything in surgery can be a prospective randomized controlled trial. It's important that we think of other ways of doing it, and we've introduced our robot using the IDEAL framework, which is a modern way of considering surgical introduction. It's a way of doing surgical introduction efficiently, safely, and cost effectively as well. And basically we went through phase 0 was cadaveric and animal studies. We actually did 350 cadaveric studies before we started. This is right in the beginning of the company. So by the time I went into the first human, I knew exactly where to put the arms, where everything went and how it worked. Then going through the phase 1, moving into phase 2A, which we did in Pune, in India, which was 30 patients, and stopped at the end, revised the patients, had a look, saw that everyone's going well, and then moved into doing a whole lot of cohort studies for publication as well, and then into the registry data. And I'm just at the point where I'm about to consider doing prospective randomized controlled trials in some areas to actually show the effectiveness of it. Proven advantages, I used to say that a good laparoscopic surgeon was as good as any robot, and that the robot wouldn't be better than. I'm not convinced about that anymore. It is easier to learn. It truncates the learning curve hugely. So I think people going onto a robot will learn their skills. I mean, the average surgeon learns to tie a knot in less than an hour, whereas the average surgeon learns to tie a knot laparoscopically in about 50 hours. And a lot of surgeons have never learned how to tie a knot properly, which is why they avoid it with all sorts of expensive and fancy toys. We are seeing certain areas where it is really doing well. It introduces standardization. The robot creates an interface between the patient and yourself, and all that data is captured. So we have telemetric data, we have data on the hands of surgeons' hand movements, we have data on the movements of the instruments. And by analyzing that, the robot on its own can tell the difference with a 99% accuracy between a novice and an expert. And when we did that study, it picked them all up, and one novice it didn't pick up, and on an expert it didn't. So we looked at the videos, and the novice was pretty damn good, and the expert was pretty damn awful. And so therefore, it shows that it's done what it says it can do. Basically, as a company, we committed to improving surgery through research and training. So commitment to more affordable training, to better training, to the metrics around training, to collect the data, to make data capture, make real-world data, and therefore real-world evidence better used. And actually go from working in the dark to being in the light and actually doing a good job of our surgery. So thank you very much for your time.